Imagine waking up in a world that's half fairy tale, half war zone, where God-shaped swords can unmake empires, where old pacts and ancient magics have teeth, and where a single choice to save a life rewrites the fate of a kingdom. This is Brimstone, a brutal, beautiful storm of blood, allegiance, and the kind of love that makes you dangerous. Stay with me. Over the next 25 to 30 minutes we'll travel through every beat of Callie Hart's novel, chapters, characters, betrayals, and the exact moments that change everything. Prologue, Kingfisher. Night in Ivelia always seemed to breathe, carrying with it the scent of snow, steel, and the restless beat of old magic. Fisher moved through that darkness like he belonged to it, silent, precise, lethal. The prologue throws us into the aftermath of violence, a vampire felled by a god word, its body collapsing into frost and embers. Fisher is not triumphant. He is controlled, calculating, the kind of warrior shaped by duty rather than glory. He retrieves Onyx, the tiny black fox, Ceres' fox, and cradles it with surprising gentleness. This contrast defines him, a blade built for ending lives, softened only by the people he refuses to lose. We see, even before Ceres appears on the page, that his decisions orbit her. His loyalty is a vow carved into bone. As he returns to the palace, blood drying on his hands, he pauses at the threshold. He can feel the magic shifting inside, foreshadowing the transformation waiting for Ceres. The prologue ends with a quiet tension. Fisher knows the world he protects is becoming something far more dangerous. Ceres wakes to a world that feels both too bright and too sharp. Her senses are flooded. The cold is colder. The warm feels scalding. Every heartbeat in the room pulses like a drum. She isn't human anymore. She isn't fully vampire either. She is something forged, sculpted, and reshaped by quicksilver, destiny, and a death that didn't quite take. Her dress, black, sinful, cut to draw every eye, is not a symbol of vanity. It's a declaration of her new standing in a court ruled by beauty, danger, and political hunger. Fisher waits for her, impossibly steady, protective without caging her. Their bond is immediate, half instinct, half yearning, and entirely undeniable. Teledeus, her maker, lingers in the doorway like a shadow. His presence is both reassurance and warning. She is stepping into a world defined by ancient power structures she must now survive. Ceres doesn't have time to mourn the girl she was. She is pulled toward the Hall of Tears, where the Lords of Midnight demand answers, obedience, or blood, whichever she can give them first. The Hall of Tears is a cathedral of cold stone and colder politics. Ceres walks its length under the gaze of ancient vampires carved into obsidian. The Lords of Midnight rise like specters, Zovina, Tal, Hazrax, Rosarius, and Vorith. Each carries centuries of grudges and expectations. Ceres is a disruption they did not invite. Her transformation has made her heir by law. She killed Malcolm with a god's word, and the law of ascension binds them to acknowledge the next rightful ruler. Zovina's challenge is immediate and vicious. Ceres is too newborn, too unstable, too human. Tal speaks for her, invoking the old rites. Hazrax watches silently, as if studying a puzzle only he understands. Vorith smiles like someone already planning the next war. Fisher stands beside Ceres, and the room grows tenser for it. His presence unsettles the court. He is no vampire, no politician, and too dangerous to be dismissed. The chapter closes with Ceres being forced to accept her new crown, not as a prize, but as the first chain she will have to break. Ceres begins to feel the burden of rule even before she sits on a throne. Servants watch her with reverence and fear. Every gesture, every tone, every mistake becomes a matter of political significance. Fisher remains at her side, navigating threats she doesn't yet understand. Tal tries to explain vampire customs, but even he seems shaken by how quickly Ceres is adapting. The court tests her constantly. A servant who bows too slowly. A noble who offers her a drink laced with a sedative by accident. She learns the first truth of rulership. Someone always wants you weakened. Her magic flickers, quicksilver, bright and erratic. She doesn't know what it wants yet, only that it amplifies everything she feels. The chapter ends with Ceres realizing that she is being reshaped not only by politics, but by power awakening inside her. This chapter expands the cast around Ceres. Carrion storms into her life like a profanity wrapped in charm. He offers comic relief, but his loyalty, once earned, is deadly serious. Foley appears as a survivor hardened by a harsh world, practical to a fault. Taelina and Maynard provide magical insight, each carrying their own histories of loss. But with every ally comes an enemy. Zovina increases her pressure, spreading rumors that Summaries is unfit to rule. Hazrax begins observing Summaries more closely, as if testing her connection to Quicksilver. Vorith pretends neutrality, but keeps track of every slip Summaries makes. By the end of the chapter, Summaries understands that friendliness in court is a performance, and she cannot trust a single smile. Taladeus attempts to teach Summaries how to use her new strength without losing control. Feeding, movement, restraint, everything is new. Summaries struggles, but not because she is weak. She fights her instincts, refusing to become the monster the court expects. Fisher watches silently, stepping in only when necessary, respecting her agency while refusing to let her be harmed. One moment defines the chapter. Summaries refuses to feed on an unwilling servant. It's an act of compassion that horrifies the court and impresses the reader. She realizes compassion is her rebellion and also her danger. Onyx, injured and dying, becomes the emotional heart of this chapter. Summaries bends over the small fox, magic trembling in her palms. She risks using her still and steady Quicksilver to heal him. The effort drains her, but it works. This act sparks something powerful, between Summaries and her magic, between Summaries and Fisher, and between Summaries and the realm. Those watching, the lords, the servants, see not weakness, but a queen who will bleed for those beneath her. Fisher's quiet gratitude deepens their bond without a word spoken. The court becomes restless. Summaries feels the shifting currents of distrust. Rumors whisper that she cannot hold the throne. Zovina pushes for a trial to strip Summaries of her position. Some nobles argue that Malcolm's death was orchestrated. Fisher stands firm against all of them. Summaries begins reading Adina's book, the prophetic text meant only for her. Every page feels like a warning she doesn't yet understand. The chapter ends with the first hint of the rot, a corrupted creature found near Kalish, its body twisted and collapsing into ash. The rot enters the story like a sickness spreading through both land and mind. An infected feeder attacks, its body grotesque and wrong, the magic inside it pulsing with hunger. Summaries and Fisher kill it, but the wound it leaves behind, on the wall, on the ground, spreads like oil. The court panics. The rot consumes magic. It turns allies into threats. Summaries feels something dark resonate in her Quicksilver, almost as if the magic recognizes the rot. The healers and mages of the court analyze the rot. Some propose culling infected regions. Others insist the rot cannot be stopped. Fisher argues for evacuation. Zovina argues for sacrifice. Adina's book reveals a single line: do not undo Zaretha's work. Summaries doesn't know what it means yet, but understands it is tied to her transformation. This chapter reveals the impossibility of keeping peace. Summaries is already at war. Archer, the fire sprite, is attacked. Summaries and Carrion carry him through blistering heat into the pyre chamber. The air burns their skin, their lungs, their eyes. They risk their lives lifting Archer to safety. In this moment, Summaries' compassion becomes a strength acknowledged even by her critics. When Lorith reveals the truth of Brimstone, that it keeps sprites alive and kills the rot, the room shifts. Hope and horror in equal measure. Brimstone can save the world, but only if the sprites die. Isabel returns, hardened and changed. She explains Brimstone fully, finite, irreplaceable and essential. A single sprite's death might provide only drops. Summaries refuses to entertain the idea of sacrificing them. Fisher's response is volcanic. He threatens anyone who suggests killing a sprite. This chapter defines the moral core of a story. What value does survival have if it demands cruelty? Kalish becomes the center of unease. The estate feels colder, the forest quieter, as if the realm itself senses the approaching devastation. Summaries walks its halls feeling the eyes of both living and spectral magic on her. Fisher becomes restless, pacing the parapets at night, sensing danger long before it reaches their borders. Messages arrive from neighboring regions, villages consumed, creatures twisted into feeders within moments of contact. The rot spreads faster than any army can travel. Amidst this, Summaries confronts Tal about his strange behavior. His answers are evasive, hunted. Something is wrong with him, something tied to the spells he allowed Isabel to ink into his chest. Summaries begins to suspect the rot is not the only corruption threatening their group. Summaries finds Fisher attempting to break a door that refuses to open. A warding spell seals it from the inside. Summaries realizes she cannot force it open, not with strength, not with quicksilver. But she remembers the Hazrax's gift, the third rune. The rune hums beneath her skin when she calls on it. Silent, subtle, but potent. Its magic is not additive, it is subtractive. It exists to break what must be broken. She touches the ward and tears it apart like ripping silk. The rot's vines crumble. The door opens. Inside, Fisher sits before a dead fire, soaked and silent. He looks hollow, lost in memories that refuse to loosen their grip. The sand from his homeland litters the floor, a symbol of the emotional fracture inside him. Summaries doesn't press him. She simply stays. This is the first moment where their bond becomes something unspoken yet unbreakable. Summaries searches the library of Callie for information about the rot and the quicksilver. But the books tell her nothing. The shelves appear empty of the knowledge she needs, until a strange phenomenon begins. Stargazer birds, perched high among the rafters, suddenly erupt into motion. They swirl into a blinding vortex, their wings slicing the air, their feathers sharp enough to draw blood. One cuts Summaries' cheek. She prepares for attack, but instead, the birds collapse. They drop from the air like dying stars. But they don't die, they unfold. Each bird becomes a sheet of paper covered in old writing. The library was never missing books. The stargazers were the books. Pages scatter across the floor, gathering themselves into a complete text. A manual of alchemy, secrets lost for centuries. Summaries realizes she now holds the only complete record of her lineage, and perhaps the realm's salvation. Tal collapses in front of Summaries, the spells inked into his body writhing like living vines beneath his skin. He tries to hide it, but the truth spills out. He allowed Isabel to place binding magic on him in an attempt to suppress the rot's influence. But the magic is killing him. Summaries uses the Hazrax's rune again, breaking the spellwork thread by thread. Tal gasps in relief as the runes fade and blood returns to his face. But the damage lingers, physically and emotionally. Tal confesses his fear. As her maker, he has a bond with her that feels like a chain. He doesn't want to control her, nor be controlled by her. Summaries reaches out and frees him, not magically, but with choice. She breaks the maker-made bond and replaces it with friendship. Edina's book reveals its next command only when Summaries tries to rush ahead. She turns a page and finds a single instruction. Read on at the White Cliffs. It offers no guidance for the rot, no instructions for survival, only a location. Fisher realizes immediately what it means. They must evacuate Callie. Inishtar, home of the White Cliffs, becomes their new goal. Danya protests. Lorith hesitates. Summaries feels the shift, leadership pressing down on her shoulders like armor. For the first time, she gives an order not as a fledgling queen, but as a ruler. This chapter ignites one of the most heated confrontations in the book. Danya argues for using Brimstone, even if it means killing sprites. Fisher snaps violently. He slams a dagger into her chest and demands she kill their friends herself if she dares suggest it again. Their shouting shakes the room. Lorith intervenes with a middle path. There may be another source of Brimstone. Fisher rejects it instantly. Summaries notices the fear in his eyes. It is not fear of the sprites dying, it is fear of what the alternative will demand of him. The ground trembles. At first, Summaries and Carrion fear a horde of rock creatures. But what emerges from the forest is not an army of feeders. It is an army of warriors. 10,000 soldiers from Iran marching toward Callie, led by Loritha's own people. They have abandoned their camp to join the coming war. The moment is both awe-inspiring and horrifying. Ivelia is rallying, but it is doing so because it sees the shadow falling across the land. Callie becomes a fortress preparing for its final dawn. Rain pours as Lorith and Danya return to Fisher with grim news. They have seen witches in the woods performing rituals that suggest betrayal, rituals tied to the rot. Fisher is exhausted, worn thin by grief, obligation, and fear of failing those he loves. Summaries realizes that leadership isn't only strategy, it is endurance. Danya insists Summaries isn't ready to lead. Fisher challenges her ruthlessly. Summaries steps between them both, choosing unity over pride. This chapter marks the shift from chaos to strategy. The fire sprites refuse to evacuate with the others. Their pyre is their life source, leaving it would kill them. But they believe their brimstone can protect them from the rot. The group struggles with the morality of leaving them behind, but Summaries and Fisher respect the sprite's autonomy. Tal prepares to leave for Balin's end, half resigned to his fate. Fisher shares an unspoken plan with Summaries, a dangerous, desperate plan he refuses to voice yet. The shadow gates open. Fisher pushes his magic harder than he ever has, opening a massive gate large enough to move an entire population. People pour through, families, warriors, creatures of all kinds. Summaries guides them, calming fears, organizing movement, acting like the queen she never wanted to be. When Everlane collapses from fever, Summaries watches Fisher crumble inside. His sister is dying, and he cannot save her. The chapter ends with the final warriors leaving Kalish, the estate falling silent behind them. Inishtar rises, a cliffside city of white stone hanging above the sea. Its beauty feels alien after the rot-plagued forests. The cliffs glow faintly with ancient magic. Summaries feels connected to this place immediately, as if Adina's prophecy had laid roots here long before she arrived. Maynir carries Everlane to a healer. The group regathers and attempts to build a temporary sanctuary. But Fisher is already thinking ahead, toward Brimstone, toward Ajuin, toward the pool that could destroy them all. Lorith finally reveals the other way to obtain Brimstone without killing sprites. Ajuin, a realm of old bargains. A realm where mortals are shaped and consumed by their promises. Fisher's refusal makes sense now. Ajuin is tied to his childhood, to trauma carved into his bones. But Summaries chooses. They will go, because no queen can ask others to risk what she herself will not. Ajuin is not entered, it is bargained with. The border pool shimmers like black mercury. Its surface shifts with faces and voices that don't belong to the living. Rinfis, the guide bound to Ajuin, emerges from the shadows. He speaks in riddles, his voice both welcoming and warning. The crossing is a ritual. Each traveler must offer something: blood, memory, strength, or truth. Summaries gives a memory of her human life. Fisher gives something far deeper, a vow he once swore as a boy. The pool accepts their sacrifices. The realm beyond the pool is wrong. Dark, shifting, alive. Diaxis, the undergod realm, the breeding ground of dragons. Fisher calls it hell. Summaries feels something ancient watching her. The ground pulses. The air tastes of iron and sorrow. They travel through landscapes that rewrite themselves. Mountain ranges turning into rib cages, rivers turning into veins of molten quicksilver. And always, something moves beneath the horizon. They reach the Brimstone pool. It is enormous, carved into the earth like a wound that refuses to heal. The surface bubbles with molten gold, blazing hot enough to burn shadows off the walls. Then it rises, a dragon, not the elegant creatures of fairy tales, but a monstrosity of flame, sulfur, and hate. Its eyes burn with ancient fury. Its scales drip brimstone. It demands a bargain. Fisher steps forward, shedding the last remnants of Kingfisher, and becoming Kaiden, the name tied to his true self, the one he has hidden even from Summaries. The dragon recognizes him. The chapter ends with a bargain beginning, one that will cost Fisher more than his life, and Summaries more than her destiny. The dragon circles the brimstone pool like a living storm, each breath rippling the molten surface. Its presence is suffocating: heat, sulfur, rage, and an intelligence sharpened by centuries of bargains. Summaries feels the air tighten around her lungs, but Fisher, Kaiden now, truly, steps forward with a composure carved from trauma. The dragon recognizes him, not as an enemy, but as a child of Ajuin, shaped by its sacred pools. Their exchange isn't conversation, it's ritual. The dragon demands a price for access to Brimstone, not blood, not magic, but truth. The kind of truth that reshapes a person. Fisher gives it. He admits the vow forced upon him in childhood, the weight of Ajuin carved into his bones, the fear he has carried for a lifetime. The dragon accepts the offering. It gives them a single measure of brimstone, dangerous, volatile, but pure. But Summaries feels something shift when Fisher offers his truth. She feels the echo of it through their bond. Ajuin's claim on him has deepened, and they still have to survive the journey back. Ajuin does not allow travelers to leave unchanged. The moment they step away from the pool, the realm twists, the landscape fracturing into illusions. They walk through memories that are not their own. Fisher's childhood buried beneath freezing water, Summaries' transformation replayed on endless loop, tells torment in the witch's circle. Rinfis guides them, but even he stumbles. Ajuin feeds on fear. The most dangerous illusion comes when Summaries sees Fisher dying, wounded, burned, begging her to save him. She almost reaches for him, but it isn't him. Choosing truth over instinct breaks the illusion. The path reforms. They escape Ajuin, but Fisher collapses the moment they cross the border, the magic having taken its toll. Inishtar receives them like returning warriors, but celebration dies quickly when they see the state Fisher is in. Maynir and Talina attempt to heal him, but neither magic nor medicine can undo what Ajuin carved into his spirit. Summaries feels helpless. Her quicksilver responds to her panic, glowing violently beneath her skin, urging her toward action she doesn't understand. Meanwhile, the others gather around the retrieved Brimstone, awed and terrified. The vial pulses like a heartbeat. Then word arrives. The rot has reached the outskirts of Inishtar. There is no time to rest. War comes to Inishtar not as an army, but as a wave of corruption. The rot moves with unnatural speed, devouring forests, twisting beasts into feeders. Warriors from Erin, satyrs, witches, and mages join forces, forming a desperate defense. Summaries stands with them. For the first time, she fights not only with instinct or fear, but with purpose. Her quicksilver becomes an extension of will, blades of liquid metal, shields of shimmering force. Fisher wakes in the chaos, broken but not beaten. Together, they halt the first wave, but the rod is learning, becoming smarter, and the source is still unknown. Everlane's condition worsens. Once bright and fierce, she now lies motionless, her skin burning with fever, her breath shallow. The healers cannot find the cause, only that something dark coils within her. Fisher sits by her bed, guilt etched into every line of his face. Summaries watches him break in silence. When Everlane whispers that she's cold, Summaries realizes something devastating. The rot is inside her, slowly consuming her. They don't tell Fisher immediately. He already blames himself. Summaries studies Adina's book again, searching for anything, any hint that could save Everlane, stop the rot, or stabilize Fisher's connection to Ajuin. The next pages reveal the ritual of sealing Brimstone. It will cost her. Sealing the Brimstone rune is not merely binding magic to her soul, it is allowing Brimstone to change who she is. Forever. But without sealing it, Ivelia will fall. She chooses the ritual. The moment she presses her hand into the molten substance, agony explodes up her arm. Her scream echoes through Inishtar. The Brimstone rune burns into completion. She wakes to Fisher holding her, terrified, and the world feels sharper, hotter, more fragile. Summaries tests her new ability on a corrupted creature brought in by Lorith. The moment the Brimstone-infused magic touches it, the rot recoils. It dies instantly. This confirmation swings the entire camp into action. Plans form quickly, too quickly. Some argue they must march out and burn the rot down. Others fear using Summaries as a weapon. The council fractures. Fisher refuses to let Summaries go alone. Summaries refuses to be protected. Danya, fueled by fear and frustration, makes a reckless choice. She attempts to steal the Brimstone vial, believing that using it all at once, regardless of consequences, is the only chance. Summaries catches her. Their confrontation is brutal. Danya's desperation is rooted not in ambition, but in terror. The rot claimed her family long ago. Summaries doesn't punish her. She simply asks for faith. For the first time, Danya gives it. Armed with Brimstone magic, Summaries, Fisher, Lorith, Carrion, Talina, and a legion of warriors march into the dying forests. The rot tries to ambush them, bursting from the ground, dropping from trees, flooding through broken streams. Summaries burns it back. With each use, the Brimstone consumes part of her magic. She feels lighter after each strike, hollow, as if something inside her is being carved away. Fisher notices. He keeps it to himself. They make camp within the corrupted zone, surrounded by dead trees and whispering vines. The rot shifts in the dark, circling them. Fisher takes first watch. Summaries wakes to find him tracing runes in the dirt, old face symbols for protection, ones his mother taught him. Their bond deepens, quietly, tenderly. But their peace is cut short when a scout returns with dire news. The rot is coming from a single source, and it's closer than anyone imagined. The group reaches a clearing where the rot pulses like a living heart. In the center stands a figure twisted by corruption, once human, now a harbinger. It speaks Summaries' name. It knows her. Before they can fight, the creature collapses, and the ground beneath them shatters. Vines lash upward, dragging warriors into the earth. Summaries unleashes Brimstone magic, but the rot shields itself. It is learning and adapting. They retreat, injuries heavy, morale shaken. Summaries realizes Brimstone alone will not be enough. They must combine it with Quicksilver. But blending the two magics is forbidden. Dangerous. Potentially fatal. Fisher volunteers. Summaries refuses. What follows is one of their most raw confrontations, love and fear colliding. Fisher admits he would rather die than watch Summaries lose herself. Summaries admits she would raise realms before losing him. Isabel returns to the group with reinforcements. The witches of Balquidder bring knowledge of ancient rituals that can weaken the rot's roots, but they cannot perform them alone. They need an alchemist. They need Summaries. The witches construct a circle infused with frost magic to slow the spread long enough for Summaries to strike the core. Time is running out. Summaries, Fisher, and the witches reach the center of the rot, a cavern seething with corrupted life. The air is thick, choking. The ground pulses underfoot. Summaries steps into the ritual circle. Quicksilver rises from her palms. Brimstone lights her skin with molten gold. The two magics collide. Her scream becomes the spell. The cavern erupts in white fire. Summaries wakes beneath rubble, her body trembling, her magic nearly gone. Fisher digs her out with bare hands, frantic. The core is weakened, but not destroyed. Something else stirs beneath the roots. Something older. Edina's book reveals its next line only now. The rot is not born. It is commanded. The true enemy has yet to appear. Evidence emerges that someone within the court orchestrated the rise of the rot, leveraging it to destabilize the realm. The clues point toward a name Summaries never expected. Someone close. Someone trusted. This betrayal fractures the group. Fisher draws his swords. Lorith nearly kills the traitor on sight. Summaries intervenes. Justice must be deliberate, not reactionary. But the damage is done. Talladega summons them. Balin's End, his ancestral home, is under siege. The rot swarms the cliffs, threatening to spill into the sea. They march through snow-choked forests, through abandoned villages, through battlefields still steaming with ash. Summaries feels her magic flickering, but she pushes onward. For Tal. For Fisher. For Ivelia. Balin's End burns. The rot has breached the outer walls. Warriors fight desperately along the shore. Waves churn with corrupted foam. Summaries sees the scale of the devastation and realizes something horrifying. Her magic alone cannot save them. But the ocean, vast, ancient, unclaimed by the rot, might. She channels Brimstone into the waves. The sea turns gold. It crashes over the rot, burning it from the roots. The tide turns. Tal fights beside Summaries with a fury she has never seen from him. His guilt, his fear, his failures, all burned away in the heat of resolve. When a massive feeder lunges for Summaries, Tal intercepts it, taking the blow that would have killed her. His sacrifice gives her the opening she needs. She severs the creature with Quicksilver. Tal collapses, but smiles. The Maker-Maid bond may be broken, but the bond of family remains. As the last of the rot burns, a shadow falls over the battlefield. The Augean dragon. It speaks only to Fisher, its words like thunder. The rot is thinning, but its master still stirs. It offers Fisher a choice. Return to Augean and accept full power, or watch Summaries die in the final confrontation. Fisher refuses. He chooses Summaries. The dragon leaves him with a final warning. Power demands a price. Love demands more. The rot's master emerges. Not a creature. Not a god. A man. A forgotten alchemist. twisted by centuries of imprisonment, fueled by hatred for the realm that hunted his kind. He sees Summaries as a successor, or a threat. He offers her a place at his side. She refuses. He attacks. The alchemist wields corrupted quicksilver, warping reality around him. Summaries feels her strength draining, her runes burning painfully, her vision fracturing. Fisher fights like a storm, but even he is pushed back. Edina's book reveals its final truth in Summaries' mind. Only the sealed may unmake the sealed. She understands. She must sacrifice the Brimstone rune. And with it, part of herself. Summaries draws on Brimstone one last time, letting it consume her from within. The power roars through her veins, molten and unbearable. She presses her hand to the alchemist's chest. Brimstone unravels his corrupted quicksilver. His body collapses into silver dust. But the cost hits instantly. The Brimstone rune burns out. Summaries falls. Summaries wakes days later in Inishtar, her body weak, her runes dimmed. The Brimstone rune is gone. Her magic is quieter, smaller. Fisher is beside her, exhausted but alive. The realm is healing. The rot recedes. Survivors rebuild. But Summaries knows she will never be the same. Fisher and Summaries walk along the cliffs at dawn. The sea below is calm, shimmering with remnants of brimstone gold. He asks her if she regrets the cost. She doesn't. Her strength was never in her magic. It was in her choices. He takes her hand, Kaiden and Summaries, bound by trial, sacrifice, and love. The future is uncertain, but they will face it together. The realm gathers to honor those lost. Lorith speaks for the warriors. Talina for the witches. Tal, wounded but recovering, for the vampires. Summaries stands before them, not as a queen defined by power, but as a leader defined by compassion. She vows to rebuild not through fear, but unity. Fisher stands behind her, not as her shield, but as her equal. Ivelia breathes again. The darkness is past, and in its place rises a dawn built on blood, sacrifice, and hope. Brimstone ends not with triumphant fanfare, but with a quiet, powerful promise. Summaries emerges from war not unscarred, but unbroken. She loses magic, gains wisdom, and learns that leadership is not a crown. It is a burden willingly carried. Fisher reclaims his true name and his true self, proving that trauma does not define destiny. Together, they reshape a realm on the brink. Their love is not the soft, fragile kind. It is forged through pain, choice, and sacrifice. The rod is gone, the alchemist defeated, and Ivelia breathes freely once more. But the real victory lies in what comes next: healing, rebuilding, and forging a future where power serves compassion, not commands it. And in that future, Summaries and Fisher walk forward as partners, warriors, rulers, and the beating heart of a realm reborn.